Okay, Ramkishan, how are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. And you?
Yeah, I'm good too. Thank you. So in your resume, Ramkishan, you have mentioned that you are working on automation test scripts for regression test cases using Selenium WebDriver, right? And
Yes,
you have overall 2.5 years of experience. So
yes.
this is great. Okay. So can you tell me something about your automation framework?
Yeah. So in my project, we're using hybrid framework. That is a combination of both data-driven and keyboard-driven framework. So in that framework, mainly we are automating the regression and retesting test cases using Java and Selenium WebDriver. So once initially we were writing the test cases, and after completion of the test cases, and once the test cases pass, that time we are going to automate that test cases using the Selenium WebDriver, TestNG, and Maven project. And we are maintaining that projects. It means in Maven repository, Maven projects, because whenever it means there will be some update of some of the dependencies. That time it will be very easy for us to maintain that updation using Maven, because just we need to uh, change our dependency version, then our whole project will be automatically updated. So it will be very useful to use Maven project, right? So what we are doing in our project, so once we are completing the test cases and the test cases pass, that time we are going to automate the test cases. Uh, initially we are selecting the test cases which are generally for regression, and for regression test cases we are automating it, and we're also checking whether how much, it means which test cases are automable. It means we can automate these test cases, because some of the test cases we cannot automate. So we are skipping that test cases, and we are automating only the test cases which are automatable, right? And so we are automating the test cases, and we are also using extent report for generating the report of the test cases, right? So I already in our project, that framework is already built by one of my teammates, which is very senior. And just we are now updating the test cases, and we are writing the test cases for new test cases. And based on that, we are executing the test cases. Right.
Okay, great. How do you find the automation test coverage done? Like, let's say if you have almost 1,000 test cases, right? How do you find the automation coverage that has been completed by your team?
Yeah. Actually, we are generally checking that regression test cases, mainly we are automating that. And we are also checking the test cases with the test matrix. Right. So how much we have covered the test cases, and we are checking with the test matrix. So we are able to know that whether we have covered all the test cases or not. Right. Based on that, we are checking the regression test cases only, and among that regression test cases, whichever the test cases which are automatable or we can automate, that test cases we are automating, right? And they on the other test cases, because some of the test cases might be like we can't automate, right? And we can try automate easily. So firstly we are trying to automate the test cases which are, it means, very easy, or which are very important to automate, or which are very use, it means repeatedly we are going to use for testing, right? So that test cases we are automating first, and then we're looking for other test cases.
Right, right. So let's say if you get this question in a real-time interview, how do you find the automation test coverage, right? So what you can answer at that time is, just a second. So what you can automate at what you can answer at that time is basically, let's say you have almost a test suite of 1,500 test cases. Okay. And out
Yeah.
of those, you have automated, let's say 750 test cases or 800 test cases. Then you can tell that you have almost covered 50% of the automation, right? So your testing is completed about 50% if the automation suite runs from end to end, right? So in an
Okay.
interview, you might get these questions like, what is the automation coverage? How do you find the automation coverage? So based on the total number of test cases, you can get that particular ratio, right? So this is how you can answer in a real-time interview also. Okay. Now, can you explain what is method overriding and what is method overloading with the help of example you can take with reference to any of your automation script that you have developed in the framework?
Okay. So generally, method overloading and method overwriting is used to it means cover the polymorphism, right? So in method overloading, what we are going to sometimes we need to write the many method, right? But just we need to pass some different parameter for that method. So it is not good to write method with a different name every time. So in that case, what we are doing in method overloading, we are writing the method by the same name, but just we are passing the different parameter to that method. So this is the it means method overloading, right? And when sometimes we need to it means I have already written one method, but I need to override that method. It means again I will write the same method with the same name and with the same parameter. But the parameter, it means the data type must be same that time, but the parameter will be different. It means quantity or their values must be different. So we will override that in that way.
Okay. How do you run your automation? How do you trigger your automation?
Yeah. Generally in our project, we have used Azure pipelines. So through Azure pipelines, we're running that automation.
Okay. Can you elaborate like how have you used or how have you developed that particular pipeline to run the automation?
Mm, No, actually, that pipeline was already built by the DevOps team. So we're just create. It means our pushing our code and then we're running the pipeline to run the.
Okay, okay, no worries. See, even if the pipeline has been developed by the DevOps team member or any infra team member or IT team member, what you can do is you can sit closely to them and you can understand what is happening behind the scenes. Okay, you can get that idea, you can get that knowledge, and once you get that knowledge, you can answer in an interview these kind of questions like what happens when you create a pipeline. So they in an Azure pipeline also there would be stages. They would be creating
Yes,
VM on the fly on which your automation would be running, right? So
yes.
have they done any script or have they used any other programming language or how have they achieved these things? So this is the basically thing that you have to understand from that. And currently it is work from office, right? Or even if it is hybrid framework, you can communicate to them via Teams, via Skype, whichever communication channel you are using, and you can collaborate with them and understand how these things are being implemented from their side. This will be helpful to you in a real-time interviews if you can answer such kind of questions. No worries. uh, which are the various exceptions that you have got in Selenium?
Yeah. In Selenium, we're getting various exceptions like element not found, then tail element reference exception. Then sometimes like a class not found exception also
Class
there.
not found and stale element reference exception, element not found exception, right? So in a real-time interview, when you get this question, try to tell more and more exceptions, right? You are already working in an automation team, right? So try to give them more and more exceptions list so that they can come to know, okay, no, this person is really doing a lot of automation work in practically also. Okay. Now the next question will be how do you overcome these exceptions? So you can take example of any one or two exceptions that you have encountered while doing automation and you can answer those things. Like let's say the element was not
Uh,
found. So how did you take step? Yeah. Yeah. You would like to answer this
yeah,
question?
yes, yes.
Yeah.
So when the element not found exception will come, there will be it means there will be two reasons behind that, right? One is we have given the either wrong allocators for that element, or second thing, sometimes our web page takes some time to load. So where we need to give some weights there. So after giving that weight, that exception will be overcome. Because sometimes what happen, our it means Selenium will try to find that element by very quickly, right? But our web page will take some time to load that web page. So we will use some wait. Either we will use mostly we will use explicitly wait there to uh, to wait till that element will be appear there. And also sometime for some exception will where surrounding that code inside the try and catch block, then that time we will it means overcome the.
Okay, great. Now, in your CV, you have mentioned you are doing API testing using Postman tool, right? You're testing the APIs using Postman. So can you tell us something about the Postman tool? How are you using that particular tool for doing API testing? Any particular defect that you have found using API testing?
Yes, actually in our project in backend they are creating the API using Python and Fast. So once that API will be created, that time they will give that API to us for testing. So in that testing, we're testing it for various, it means for various data, whether that data is coming. We're checking initially the status code of that response, whether it is giving the correct status code. Most of the time, the status code will be 200. This is for success, right? And again, we are checking the header parameters, whether that content type is as per the requirement or not. Again, there will be some cookie or not. Again, we're checking in the response whether the data is coming right or not. Sometimes we're passing some parameters. Suppose in our data there was a lot of orders, right? In our project. So again, in front of that, we can give some parameters as well. It means we can extract some particular orders as well from that API by providing some params in that API, right? So we're also passing that params and we're checking whether it is giving the data for that particular whatever the parameter we have passed for that only it is giving or not. And also for other it means it is for the get request, right? So once we're it means sometimes there will be put or post request for the API. So in that cases, we are passing some parameters, right? So we are checking after passing the parameter whether it is giving the whether that parameter will be stored in the database or not, whether that data is stored or not. And sometimes we are passing the parameter in different order. Suppose I have to pass the parameter in like first parameter will be my ID, second parameter will be some other name, and third parameter will be age. So we are checking by altering the parameter, their sequence as well, right? And again, we are checking by passing some different keys to that parameter. So again, this will be failing. So we are checking like that.
Great. Any specific defect that you would like to share with us, which you have found using API testing?
Yeah, there was a lot of time because backend people what they are doing, so they are changing some parameters, right? And mostly it is happening when they will pass some parameter like some values, right? So there was two to three scenarios where we need to pass. It means for the in API we need to pass one parameter that is SAP value. So in that parameter we have to pass SAP value either one or zero, right? So there will be two cases. We can pass it by either it is in integer or we can pass it like inside the string as well. So that time we have it means initially they was given that we need to pass in integer, right? And again they have changed something, and again we that time I was also passing the integer parameter, but API was failing because in the backend they have changed the data type of that parameter, so it was difficult. And sometime and again there was some two to three APIs which was depend on other. There was for our project there was schedule was running for fetching the orders from the data lake, right? So for that one API was running, and API was taking around 10 to 15 minutes to load the data. And that time there was two API was running. Initially one API is running and it will giving three responses. That is first in progress, then fail, and one done. So that API is giving the is in progress response till that data will become. That is, it was giving the same response till 10 to 15 minutes, right? And once that response, it means that in progress response will change to done. That time, second API was calling to get the data from the data lake. So that time we are facing some problems, lot of time because we need to wait for this much time, And again, sometimes if API was failed, that time again we need to run the API again. And there was also one main thing. Suppose some other person is running the same API. So that time, suppose I have run the API, and at the same time, some other person wants to run that API. That time it was not running because that time also there was one pipeline was running to fetch the data from the initially they was taking the data from the data lake, and then they were storing in the database. From database again they are taking, and then they are fetching data and showing into the response, and then that response they were giving to the front end. So this API was very confusing, and that feature was taking a lot of time to test as well.
This is a wonderful example. The data type with which was used in an API was changed from string to integer, and you found it using API testing. So this is good example. Okay. Now coming to Postman thing, you know, as you are using Postman, so which are the various, I would say, different scopes of an environment variable in Postman?
Yeah, there are two environment variables, pre environment, pre test, and then the test environment. So some that one API is running, it was taking the consideration before execution of that, it means API, before running the API, and some was taken into consideration after the execution.
Okay. So you are telling about API, but the question was about environment variable. So generally, a scope of a variable is defined in a Postman, right? There are two scopes. One is local scope
Yeah,
and one is
local and
global.
global actually.
So local is those are the variables which can be accessed only in the environment in which those were created, right? While global scope is nothing but those can be accessed globally in any environment, right? So those are the two different scopes of an environment variable. So this is fine. And let's move to the next question. Can we import local variables in Postman monitors? Hello, check it.
In the same collection, we can
Yeah, do you want me to repeat the
same.
question?
Yes.
Okay, okay, I'll repeat the question. Can we import the local variables in Postman monitors? Is
I
it
don't
possible?
know.
Yeah, is it possible? Okay, you are not aware about this? Okay, okay, no worries. See, this is a mock interview. Even if you don't know the answer of the question, that is absolutely fine. So if this question is asked to you, like whether it is possible to import local variables in Postman monitors or not, so you can tell yes, Postman monitors allows to import local variables, right? But it does not allow us to import the global variables, right? So this thing you have to answer. Okay, now tell me which one has the higher priority in Postman, a global variable or a local variable?
Local variable.
Local variable has a higher priority.
Yes.
Okay, so it will override the global variable. That is what you are telling.
Yes.
Okay, now is it possible that a local variable has the same name and a global variable also has the same name?
No.
No. Okay, so these two questions are an open questions for the viewers who are watching this video. Which one has a higher priority in Postman, a global variable or a local variable? And second question is it possible to have a local variable and a global variable with the same name in a Postman? Okay, so you can put your answers in the comments of this video, and we would try to answer this question in 24 hours. Okay, so this was about Postman. Okay, moving to next question. Okay, let's say you have to select some particular value from a drop down. Okay, there is a drop down named country, and there are various countries listed like India, Sri Lanka, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand. You have to select some specific value from the drop down. So how will you automate it using Selenium?
Okay. So firstly, we need to create the object for select. That is select some name we can do, and then new select, and then we need to do that object and select. And there will be different ways to select the element. We need to select it by using its index. Then we can select it by using its value, and it means its text, visible text as well. We can select. We can select it by either index, visible text, or a name.
Correct. Select by text or select by text. Okay. Now, let's say you are trying to locate some element via XPath. Okay. Now the XPath is dynamic. It is changing continuously. So how will you
Yes.
tackle such kind of situation? What will you do in this scenario?
Actually, most of the times we are using relative expath, because in relative expath we are directly jumping to from parent to the particular element, right? So in that case, there will be less chance to, if suppose developer has changed in that code as well, that time we will not get that much issue as compared to the absolute expath, because absolute expath we are it means giving the expath starting from its parent to the that particular element. So in that case, suppose in the new module or new features, developer has changed something and he has added or deleted some of the tags in between them. So that time it will be that XPath will be totally changed. So most of the time we are find the element by using, whenever we are finding the element using XPath, that time we are using a relative XPath. And if there is some other tags as well, that is idea name, which is unique, that time we are considering that ID, because ID are very unique. No one using same ID again and again. And whenever the XPath using, we are using relative XPath only.
Right, right. You will be going for relative XPath. True. Okay. Now, can you tell me the non-functional test scenarios for a login page? Let's say you have to test a login page. So can you tell me the non-functional test scenarios? How will you test that particular login page?
Okay, so firstly, we're checking the login functionality by considering, which means we're taking the security into consideration, right? So we're logging the account and we're not doing anything for a particular time, right? And that again we will check whether after some time it is going to log out automatically or not. Right? That is the one case. Then
Any other
understood.
test scenario that is coming to your mind? So you can also test using concurrent testing. Let's say together, for example, 100 users are trying to log in at one particular time. So what is the response time of the application of the website? Is everyone able to log in, or are people facing some kind of slowness issues? So such things you can test in
Yes, yes,
non-functional testing,
yes.
right?
You,
Then
you can test for performance.
performance, yes, performance testing you have to do. Load testing you can perform. Stress testing you can perform. For example, if the developer or the dev team would have communicated to you that at a time 1500 users can log in, right? So you can try to log in via for more than 1500 users, right? You can perform those kind of stress testing and see what is the response of the application. You can test load testing also. You can do gradual increase in the number of users, like first you can try for 100 users, then 200, 300, and you can go up till 1500, and then you can see what is the uh, response of the website, right? Then security testing you were mentioning, right? You can also uh, do, play with the request. Let's say you have entered a proper username and password as a parameter in the login web page, in the login API. Now you can manipulate those request parameters, right, using any of the tool, fiddler tool or any worksuit tool, and then you can check whether the response is being taken care, or if it is throwing some kind of exception to you, right? So these are the things that you can take care. Okay, now what is the difference between Git and SVN?
Git and
SVN, SVN. Have you heard about SVN?
actually I are using
Mhm. You are
So in
using.
Git, we are generally it is yes, we are using Git for version control system.
Yeah.
So in that we are able to know that we has committed the code and what the time, and we also able to suppose 2 to 3 developers are working, or 2 to 3 people are working on the same code. That time also we can able to identify the code which is developed by the other, and we can able to merge the code securely. It means without affecting the function. It means suppose I have without Git, we have used 2 people have worked in the same file. They have changed something, and at the time, and they have merged that file into one file. So it will be creating lot of problem, right? So Git will able to manage that problems, and it will resolve that and able to know the who has created, and also we can merge it in proper way to avoid the conflicts and
Correct, to avoid conflict. So Git is a version control tool, right? So SVN is also a version control tool, right? So what you can do is after this video, you can go through some aspects of SVN, right? For sure, Git is used in most of the companies, and SVN is used much less compared to Git, right? Okay, okay, Ramkishan, I am done with the interview. Do you have any questions for me?
no, actually, just tell me where I need to improve and
Right. So, see, as you are using API testing and you are doing API testing using Postman, right? So, what you can do is you can revisit few of the concepts related to Postman, because many options are there within the Postman tool. You will definitely get questions on them, right? Second aspect is about the framework. Let's say if you are using hybrid framework, then you can also see how what happens in a keyword driven framework, what happens in a data driven framework, right? You can explore those frameworks on a very high level, and then you can understand how the other companies or other projects or other team members are using them, right? Third is the Azure thing that you are telling, as you are using Azure DevOps to trigger your automation, to run your automation, right? So you can collaborate with the team members of the DevOps team, and you can understand what is happening behind the scenes. Right? So rest all things were really good. You are having good knowledge and you are having clarity as well, like what you are testing and how you are testing. So rest all looks good. Okay, okay. Thank you so much, Ramkishan, for coming on our channel, and all the best for your career. If you are giving any interviews in the future, please share interview questions with us. And if you are getting selected in any of the company,
actually,
yeah,
actually on next Saturday my interview is here.
okay. Okay, on next Saturday you have got interview.
Mm.
Okay, great, great. So all the best for the interview, and do share interview questions with us once the interview is over.
Mm.
Okay,
Mm.
yeah, thank you so much. And in the future also,
Thank-
please do keep sharing all the interview questions with us so we can create videos on them and it would be helpful to the community.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.